Hi everyone. Okay, so we only have 4 days to go until the much anticipated World Championship match between Viswanathan Anand and Magnus Carlsen. Very exciting stuff. It's a match that will have huge historical significance regardless of the result. The next generation taking on the one before it. Young natural talent against old experience. Fresh power challenging established dominance. The meeting of two incredible chess minds. The chess world awaits, and awaits with huge expectation. Neither player needs any introduction. Anand has been the undisputed world champion for 6 years now, and defended his title against the mighty Kramnik, Topalov, and most recently Gelfand. A lifelong top 10 player, Anand's ability has never been in doubt. Carlsen's rise to the top has been meteoric, and he has taken the chess world by storm over the last few years. This year he broke Kasparov's all-time rating record and remains a massive 70 elo points ahead of Aronian in second and 95 points ahead of Anand, with a gigantic rating of 2870. He's been compared to the legendary Capablanca, as well as previous world champions Karpov and Smyslov, who all had pure positional styles. Carlsen's endgame prowess already has enormous recognition, as does his superb memory and psychological play. If we were going by rating alone, then Carlsen of course would be the favourite. But there's more to consider than that. Matthew Lunn wrote an excellent article for ChessBase where he discusses the various factors of the upcoming match. Firstly, he looked at their previous record. Anand and Carlsen have played 29 times at standard time controls thus far in their careers. Anand has won 6, Carlsen has won 3, and the other 20 games were drawn. However, it's important to remember that Carlsen is only 22 years old, and many of Anand's wins came when Carlsen was not fully matured as a player. Also, out of 29 games, Carlsen has only won 3, which is approximately 1 in 10. Again, odds that favour Anand. But, more to the point, Carlsen has been winning the most recent games, including the last 2, and Anand has not beaten Carlsen since 2010. Overall, this definitely favours Carlsen. Secondly, there is form to consider. Over the last couple of years, Carlsen has been virtually unstoppable, routinely dismantling the world's elite, winning top tournaments including Chorus this year, and has proved very tough to defeat, although it does happen sometimes, but often only when he overpresses, something that's unlikely in a World Championship match. Anand, on the other hand, has been out of shape, especially in the 2011 to 2012 period, with a high level of drawing games and too many losses. He bounced back a little this year with a couple of tournament victories, although his performance at the Tal Memorial was subpar. Overall, this factor again favours Carlsen, who is 20 years younger and playing at the highest level we've ever seen him at. Thirdly, we have to consider match experience, and this is one of the few areas that favour Anand, along with general career experience. He's defended his title on 3 occasions already, and, notably against Kramnik, has shown that his match preparation is of the highest standard. One of Carlsen's only weaknesses, if it can be called that, is his opening repertoire, and this is definitely something upon which Anand and his team will be aiming to capitalize. They scored a bullseye in their work against Kramnik, with the Meron variation of the Queen's Gambit furnishing Anand 2 victories with the black pieces in the early rounds. Indeed, Kramnik only had 1 win out of 12 games against Anand, and so it'll be very interesting to see what is used against Carlsen, and also what he himself elects to use against Anand. These days, the World Championship matches feature almost exclusively the Queen's Gambit lines. Will either player dare to open with 1e4 king's pawn? So, to get back to the point, Anand's match play experience is huge, whereas Carlsen's is meagre in comparison. Moreover, Vichy is well used to the pressure of World Championship matches. He knows the format, the formalities, and what to expect. All of it is new to Carlsen, and his youth, if anything, will work against him with regard to this factor. Therefore, Anand is definitely the one with the advantage in this area. Also, the match is being played in Anand's home country, India, which is another significant factor in his favour. He's used to the food, the culture, the environment, not least of all the heat, which is often over 30 degrees at this time of year in Chennai, a far cry from the snowstorms of Norway. Naturally, these factors again favour Anand. The match is 12 games long, and both players are liable to tire in the later rounds. Also, Carlsen may get frustrated if he is not able to break Anand down game after game, and his youth will make him more likely to try something impulsive in comparison to Anand's fully mature common sense and calmness. An early win for either side will have a huge bearing on the rest of the match. Realistically, draws are highly likely in the early rounds, with the pressure and tension gaining in every round as a result, something that Anand again will be a lot more familiar with than Carlsen. By all accounts, Anand is the underdog, and unusually for a champion, I think there is more pressure on Carlsen to perform in this match. Overall, I have to agree with most pundits and give Carlsen an edge going into the match. However, I do not think it's as big as many are making out, and I think that it will be a lot closer than most people are giving Anand credit for. My prediction for the final match score is 6.5 to 5.5 in Carlsen's favour. So, for this video, I thought we'd have a look at some of their previous encounters as a warm-up for the match. Many of these games have been covered on YouTube already, so I apologize in advance if I'm duplicating anyone else's work. This rapid game was played at the Chess Classic in Mainz in 2008, before Carlsen had emerged as the next chess giant, although he was climbing his way to the top already with a rating of 27.75. Anand was at 27.98 and also had white and opened with e4. So Carlsen replied with c5, the Sicilian defense. How great it would be to see this at the World Championship match. In fact, this defense is probably one of the main reasons we do not see players opening with king's pawn at World Championship matches. So we went into one of the main lines, knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, attacking e4, knight c3 defending it, and now g6, the dragon variation, which Carlsen played in his younger days. It's called the dragon because the kingside pawns, and the pawn here on d6, are the same formation as the constellation Drago, the dragon, and also because the bishop that will be on g7 can become a monster breathing fire down the long diagonal, in King's Crusher's words. So, play continued with the main line, bishop e3, now bishop g7, f3, cementing the e4 pawn and preventing knight g4 to harass the bishop on e3. Knight c6, queen d2, aiming both to exchange off this bishop on g7 and also to castle long with the pawn storm pending in standard Sicilian style. So castles, bishop c4, and this setup is known as the Yugoslav attack and is widely considered the best formation to use against the dragon. Bobby Fischer, amongst many more, had great success using this setup, and in my 60 memorable games, Fischer even claims that amateurs beat grandmasters with this opening, such as the strength of White's position. So bishop d7, bishop b3. This is a great square for the light square bishop in almost all lines of the Sicilian. You don't have to worry about the pawn on c2 being backward on an open file. Well, it's not backward, but it's weak, and also there's obviously some attacking power in it as well. And we're still well within book lines. All of these moves are simple and development minded more than anything else. So rook c8 is going to the semi-open file. White castles long, now knight e5. A nice central posting for the knight with the option of knight c4 later to win the bishop pair. So king b1 from Anand, and statistically White does very well from these positions, although new wriggles are still being found for black. King b1 might seem like a passive move in an active position, but it's the most popular move in the position. It gets the king out of the line of fire, not only on the c file from the rook, but also from the h6 to c1 diagonal, which can be an issue sometimes with the queen on d2. Also, it renders certain ideas possible for white, such as playing knight d5 if black has played queen a5, because then the queen will be attacked on a5 by the queen on d2, and if the queen takes d2, white can throw in the intermezzo, knight takes e7 with check before capturing the queen on d2, and if the king is on c1, then when the queen captures it'll be check, so that option won't be there. So this is another idea behind king b1. Now a6 from Carlsen, and this move scores the best for black at the moment in the databases. As usual for Sicilians, both sides will pawn storm in order to open lines to the enemy king. So h4. Vichy answers in kind and provokes Carlsen into the weakening move h5, which is definitely something of a concession. Although it does have positional ideas in mind, apparently tying down very firmly on the g4 square, which Anand now played very energetically against immediately playing g4 in order to open lines. Is, as I said, seemingly not a viable move because black has this square totally under control unless white wants to make a little investment in his attack. So obviously that's what Anand is up to after h6 g4, now h5. And the idea here is clear, simply to open the h file. Fischer had a great record against the dragon, as I said, and his winning strategy was simply to open the h file, throw in a couple of sacrifices and deliver mate. Of course, it's not quite that easy for mere mortals, but Anand appears to have the same approach in mind with discontinuation. Not that Anand is immortal by an account. But anyway, knight takes h5. 2 pawns are now given merely to open the file to the black king. It's very self-assured play. So, next came rook dg1, clearly intent on winning with direct attack in the middle game. Carlsen, for his part, continued with queen a5, which is a standard liberating move in the Sicilian. Fritz wanted instead g takes f3, and now white has knight f5, and the correct answer is e6, not g takes f5, because the rook takes g7 check with a forced mate. King takes g7, bishop h6 check, king h7, and rook takes h5, and the rest is easy. So e6, then knight takes g7, knight takes g7, bishop d4, and here Fritz claims equality, and is fine for an engine, but no human player wants to give up his dark squared bishop after having fianchettoed, and as well as giving white all the play he wants on the h and g files. The evaluation is only equal here, meaning that white has a big positional advantage because he's 3 pawns down. So, as I said, it might be okay for an engine, but for a human it's just not an option to play that way. So queen a5, and now bishop h6, simply to loosen up the king side a little. Carlsen now had a creative but not 100% accurate idea. Rook takes c3. Okay, black's 2 pawns up, so this sacrifice is understandable, everything else being equal. If you're 2 pawns up, you can sack the exchange and try and grind your opponent down. But everything else is not equal, and with accurate play, white is now able to gain a significant advantage. If you want to try and find out or figure out how, then stop the video now. Bishop takes g7 is the move. If instead b takes c3, black has active play for the exchange after queen c5. So bishop takes g7 is the right move. Now king takes g7, the correct move from Magnus. Playing instead knight takes g7, loses outright to queen h6. And it's just gonna be made. Knight h5, rook takes h5, g takes h5, queen g5 check, king h7, now rook h1. And there's no way to avoid mate. So king takes g7, and now the key move for white, rook takes h5. And this retains the advantage in all lines. And you know, black has offered the exchange here, but it's always wise to remember that recaptures are not compulsory. Sometimes there are stronger moves to play instead. White can leave the rook on c3 for now, and in actual fact Carlsen was inclined to move in with the rook takes b3, giving up his queen for complications. If he plays instead g takes h5, now comes queen g5 check, and in fact this forces knight g6, after which black drops the queen for nothing. This way he gets an extra piece. So rook takes b3, queen takes a5. Anand gladly accepts, but even stronger in fact was queen h6 check, king f6, queen g5 check, king g7, knight takes b3, attacking the queen, queen c7, and this is just a crushing advantage for white. So queen takes a5, now rook takes b2 checks, a tactical idea that Anand of course didn't fall into, and played king a1. If king takes b2, knight c4 check, wins back the queen, although white is still better. After knight takes a5, rook takes a5, g takes f3, knight takes f3. But black does have some counterplay after bishop c6 with 3 pawns for the rook. So king a1, and now g takes h5. So we have bishop and rook against the queen, as well as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2 pawns extra for black. So you know there's definitely play for the queen here. But the problem is f4, and this is another key move that white has to have, because if the knight is forced to move, then the rook is gonna die. So Carlsen played instead here bishop e6, and now simply knight takes e6, f takes e6, and f takes e5. So you know, perhaps Carlsen hadn't seen that he would lose the knight. Otherwise black definitely had some active play going on against the queen. Even so, he has a rook and 3 pawns against the queen, which isn't bad, and for the moment the position is approximately equal after rook b5, which is the right move. If instead rook takes c2, which might look tempting, but black has to resist capturing the pawn. E takes d6 now. It's just winning for white. So rook b5, queen c7, black wins back the pawn, rook takes e5. Sorry, white wins back the pawn with queen takes e7 check, rook f7, and now queen takes d6, but rook takes e4. And both sides have exchanged 2 prisoners, to use Nimzovich's phrase. However, this opening of the board definitely favors the queen, and white is starting to gain an edge after rook h1. Attacking h5, so rook f5 to defend it. Now queen e7 check, king g6, and now queen e8 check. A strange choice. Better was simply queen takes b7. So queen e8 check, and now king g7. Carlsen answers in suit. White now has a big edge at over a pawn. Much better was simply king h6, and it's approximately equal. So king g7, and now rook d1. Another strange choice. White has played to win h5, and it's not clear why Anand didn't follow through with the plan. Perhaps both players were starting to run low on time, as the accuracy for the last few moves is not what it had been earlier in the game. Rook takes h5. Queen takes h5, and you know, white should win from here pretty easily. So rook d1, and now rook d5. A blunder from Carlsen. Better was king f6. So rook d5. So rook takes d5. Anand is happy to get material off the board. E takes d5. Now queen takes h5, and black could reasonably resign here. Carlsen played b5, and now came queen g5 check. Gets the king to a less stable square before taking on d5, attacking the rook. So rook a4, and This keeps everything protected, and Carlsen is clearly playing for a fortress, which is really his only hope here, but it's just too loose, the position overall. It pretty much can't be done. Anand continued with queen g5, a nice move. Has the idea of forcing the rook to move. Carlsen played rook c4. If instead king h8, then queen g6 is zugzwang, as black can't save both a6 and g4. So rook c4, now king b2. Anand gets his king active. Rook b4 check, king c1, and what he's doing is bringing it over to prevent the queening of this pawn, which is the basis for black's counterplay. So rook a4, now a3 to save the pawn tactically. If rook takes a3, queen e7 check, it's going to win the rook. So rook c4, king d2, rook d4 check, king e1, rook a4, king f1, rook c4. Black can only play to try and hold the position. It's totally futile, but perhaps Anand was low on time. It's hard to know. So king g1, now rook c6, queen d5, attacking the rook, and not queen takes g4. Rook g6 is going to draw. So queen d5, rook g6, now a4. Anand clarifies the queenside situation before taking further action. So b takes a4, queen d7 check, king h6, queen takes a4. And now Carlsen continued with king g5, and Anand advanced his newly passed pawn c4, king f5. Black's position is just hopeless. He should resign. The advantage for white now is over 7 pawns, so it's just completely winning. c5. How does black stop this pawn? It just can't be done. King e5, but after queen d7, Carlsen resigned because there's just no way to prevent the queening of the c pawn, and no counterplay either because Anand has brought his king over to the queen side. So it was a very nice win for Anand, and it would be great to see such a game in the World Championship match, but as I said, realistically it's unlikely because both players will be playing extremely carefully. So time will tell. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave any comments or thoughts. Thanks very much.